we had a rocky start, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think it was a good, very initial start, but then after a few years, when the typical 7-year problems start to hit a marriage, the disillusionment kind of sets in, and that's when we kind of hit our stumbling blocks. So,
Right.
and not coincidentally, we had pulled away from the church as far as you could pull away from the church.
Right.
We stayed sacramental up until our kids were baptized, and then at that point, we kind of just did our own thing, and we kind of figured, hey, God, we got this, we're good on our own, we don't need it anymore,
Right.
and that's when things started to fall apart for us.
Right.
So.
I heard about natural family planning and theology of the body first. I had gone to a talk about theology of the body, and Christopher West, I am certain that is the first exposure to it, was his 1-hour talk on marriage and the Eucharist. So I remember driving home in the car, listening to that CD, and I was bawling as I pulled into the garage. And I just sat there and continued to cry and listened to the rest of the CD before I went into the house. And you got to hear this. And he probably heard it, the next day or whenever on the way to work. But I don't think it struck him. I don't know, how did it strike you?
Yeah, it didn't catch me right off the bat. It was kind of one of those things where I first did what I always do with the church, is that I got to challenge it to figure out, is this really true? And if it's true, is there any wiggle room for error or anything like that? The church is very insistent that there sometimes is not wiggle room for error, and this was one of those areas where I wanted to prove that there was, and I failed in my attempt to find there was wiggle room, because it all made perfect sense to me that, to be giving of yourself, and including in our marriage vows, when we said we were going to be open to life, and then thinking, how are so many couples going through these marriage vows and saying, I'm open to life, but then contracepting immediately,
Right.
if not already before they got married.
Right.
And I thought it was a false, pledge. So I mean, even after we got married and after I got married Versa, we had our vows renewed, it felt more concrete, because here we were finally saying, this was the message we thought we said back in 1998, and now 10 some years later, we're saying it for real and meaning it and trying to live it. Natural family planning all along the way has helped to sort of keep us geared and keep our ship steering in the right direction, because we know that with everything there's periods of abstinence, things that you have to struggle with the plan, but it works, and it helps us to really appreciate each other more, and we can communicate more on levels that we didn't communicate before, and that's what the key is, I think, for us, making it for the next 20 years.
I wanted to become a teacher because I judged that this message needed to get out there. And we only had, at the time, 2 teaching couples in our diocese, and they had been the only 2 teaching couples in like 20 years.
Yeah.
And so I was very motivated to minister to newlyweds, people who are engaged, to let them know that this was there for them. Expose them to it at the beginning of their marriage, because I was hopeful that I could help them avoid the pain that we had endured through all of our process. And so I was all gung-ho, let's do this, let's learn how to teach, and taught our first couple in August of 2010. And that couple went on to become our first offspring. They became a teaching couple, which was super rewarding, because they came into class. Well, we didn't know this, but they had come into class, and prior to that, the husband had said they were fiancé at the time, he goes, if they're old or weird, we're not coming back. And not only did they come back for all of their lessons, they came back a couple years later to learn how to teach. And so, very rewarding. And now they're some of our closest friends, as far as being teachers in our diocese with us as well. And like we had shared in the past, a lot of couples may find themselves in our position because they're following a worldly path, and it's our job to make sure that they know that they're not alone, that they, there's other couples who are willing to walk with them through any struggle that they might be experiencing, and regrets that they might be having from decisions that they've made in the past. It doesn't have to be the end of their story. There's always more to the story, and God, if we just seek God's will, He will bless us.